The rope bit deeper. Emma Hayes had stopped feeling her hands 6 hours ago. The steel wire wrapped around her wrists had long since cut through skin, through the first layer of muscle grinding now, against something that might have been bone. She couldn't tell anymore. Everything below her shoulders had become a single white-hot scream that her mind had learned to compartmentalize to lock away in a box labeled later. If there was a later, 38 hours. She knew because she'd been counting seconds, counting heartbeats, counting the number of times Khalid al-Rashid had circled the tree, his boots crunching on the frozen ground, his voice asking the same questions in that maddeningly patient tone. Where is your team? How many SEALs in the mountains? What is your extraction point? And every time Emma gave him the same answer, the only answer she was authorized to give. Hayes Emma, 2nd Lieutenant, United States Navy, service number 5738921. Nothing more, nothing less. The Hindu Kush mountains stretched endlessly in all directions, jagged peaks cutting into a sky so blue it hurt to look at. March in Afghanistan. The sun beat down during the day, turning the high-altitude air into something thin and cruel. But at night, the temperature plummeted to 5 degrees below zero. Emma's body had shaken so violently during the last sunset that she'd bitten through her lower lip, blood freezing in a thin line down her chin. She was still shaking now, though the sun had been up for 3 hours. The oak tree they'd chosen for her display stood alone on a ridge visible for miles. A message. That's what she was. Not a prisoner, not even a person. Just a message to the Americans. We can break your soldiers. We can break your women. We can break your will. Khalid thought so anyway. He didn't understand that breaking a Hayes required more than rope in cold and time. Emma's father had taught her that. The memory came unbidden as it always did when the pain threatened to overwhelm her training. She was 8 years old, sitting in the bed of her father's pickup truck somewhere in the great dismal swamp. Rain hammered down, cold October rain that felt like needles against her skin. They'd been out there for 6 hours, a training exercise her father called it, building mental toughness. This was before Mogadishu, before everything changed. Pain is temporary, Emma, Commander Jack Hayes had said, his voice barely audible over the downpour. It feels like forever when you're in it, feels like it'll never end, but it does. Everything ends. Pain fades, the body heals. He'd leaned closer, water streaming down his face, those pale blue eyes locked on hers. But dishonor lasts forever. You give up your brothers, you give up your mission, you give up your country, that stain never washes off, not with all the rain in the world. 8 years old and shivering in a swamp, Emma had nodded. She'd understood even then. 27 years old and dying on a mountainside in Afghanistan, she understood even better. Khalid stopped circling. Emma could hear his boots plant themselves in front of her, could sense him studying her face. She kept her eyes closed, didn't give him the satisfaction. You are strong, he said. His English was perfect, barely accented. Stronger than the men we usually capture. They talk by hour 20. They beg by hour 30. But you, he paused. Emma could hear the faint whistle of wind through the peaks, the distant call of a hawk. You are different. Emma's lips moved, cracked, bleeding, but still functional. Hayes Emma, 2nd Lieutenant? Yes, I know. Khalid's voice carried something new. Respect, perhaps. Your name, rank, and number. The code of conduct. I know the American military rules, Lieutenant Hayes. I have been fighting your country for 26 years. 26 years. The number lodged in Emma's brain like a splinter. 26 years meant Khalid had been fighting since 1985. Since before Emma was born. Since before her father had joined SEAL Team 6. Since before Mogadishu. The thought opened a door in her mind that she'd been keeping carefully locked, but pain and exhaustion had weakened her mental discipline, and the memories spilled through. October 1993. Emma was 9 years old, sitting at the kitchen table in their Virginia Beach home, working on homework. 4th grade, long division. Her mother, Catherine, was cooking dinner. She remembered the smell of pot roast, remembered thinking that it was her father's favorite and he'd be happy when he got home from his deployment. Except he didn't come home. The Navy chaplain came instead. Commander Jack Ghost Hayes, SEAL Team 6, missing in action during Operation Gothic Serpent, Mogadishu, Somalia, the Battle of the Black Hawk Down, presumed killed in action. Presumed. They never found his body, never recovered any remains. For months, Emma had clung to that word. Presumed, not confirmed, not certain. Just presumed. But months became years and presumed became fact, and eventually Emma stopped waiting for her father to walk through the door. She'd grown up. She'd graduated high school. She'd gotten into the Naval Academy at Annapolis against all odds, a driven young woman with something to prove and ghosts to chase. She'd become a SEAL, one of only a handful of women to make it through the crucible of Bud's training. She'd pushed herself harder than anyone, longer than anyone, because quitting wasn't in her vocabulary. Her father's last words to her, spoken in September 1993 before he deployed, had been simple: "A Hayes never quits. Remember that, sweetheart. No matter what happens, no matter how hard it gets. Never." "You are thinking of someone," Khalid said, pulling Emma back to the present. "I can see it in your face. Even now, even like this, your mind is somewhere else. With someone else." Emma opened her eyes, looked at him for the first time in hours. Khalid al-Rashid was 51 years old, though he looked older. His face was weathered, carved by decades of desert sun and mountain wind, a thick beard more gray than black, dark eyes that had witnessed too much death. He wore traditional Afghan clothing, a dark brown pakal hat, and a tactical vest that had definitely come from American military surplus. And on his left wrist, just visible beneath his sleeve, was a watch. Emma's heart stopped. A Rolex Submariner, black face, steel bracelet, and even from 6 feet away, even with her vision blurring from dehydration and exhaustion, Emma could see the engraving on the back of the case just where the bracelet attached. J.H. Devgru, 1992. Jack Hayes, Development Group, SEAL Team 6, her father's watch. The watch he never took off. Not when he slept, not when he showered, not when he deployed to Somalia in September of 1993 and never came back. The world tilted. Emma's vision tunneled, darkness creeping in from the edges. "Ah," Khalid said softly, "now you see it. Now you understand." Emma's voice came out as a whisper, barely audible. "Where did you get that watch?" Khalid glanced down at his wrist as if noticing the Rolex for the first time. He turned his arm, letting the sunlight catch on the polished steel. This is very old, a gift, from a man I knew many years ago. A brave man, an honorable man." He looked back at Emma and something in his expression shifted. A man who should not have died the way he did. The darkness at the edges of Emma's vision rushed inward. The last thing she saw before unconsciousness claimed her was Khalid's face watching her, with eyes that held something like regret. And the last thing she heard was his voice, so quiet she might have imagined it. "You look like him." 72 hours earlier, the MH-47 Chinook's engines were so loud that Emma felt them more than heard them, a vibration that rattled through her chest, through her bones, through the deck plates beneath her boots. Around her, 11 Navy SEALs sat in silence, each man lost in his own pre-mission rituals. Chief Petty Officer Wade Garrett was field stripping his M110 sniper rifle for the third time, his hands moving with the unconscious grace of 20 years' practice. Petty Officer Dane Killian sat with his eyes closed, lips moving in what might have been prayer or might have been a mental rehearsal of the breach procedures. Doc Holloway methodically checked his medical kit, counting bandages and morphine syringes with the focused intensity of a man who knew he'd need every single item before the night was over. And at the front of the cabin, studying a tactical map with a red-lensed flashlight, sat Lieutenant Commander Briggs Reaper Maddox, 42 years old. 20 years as a SEAL, 217 combat missions, 3 Bronze Stars, 2 Silver Stars, and a Navy Cross he never talked about. Maddox had served with the best, fought alongside legends, and trained under the greatest warriors the teams had ever produced, one of whom had been Commander Jack Hayes. Emma watched Maddox from across the cabin, wondering if he saw her father when he looked at her. If he saw the same pale blue eyes, the same stubborn set of the jaw, the same refusal to accept that some missions were impossible. As if sensing her gaze, Maddox looked up, made eye contact, gestured with 2 fingers, "Come here." Emma unbuckled her harness and moved forward, keeping her balance against the Chinook's vibration with the ease of someone who'd spent more hours in helicopters than cars. She crouched next to Maddox, close enough that they could talk without shouting. "Intel update," Maddox said, tapping the map. "Sat imagery from 3 hours ago shows increased activity around the compound. More heat signatures than expected. Maybe 40-45 fighters." Emma leaned in, studying the thermal overlay. The compound sat in a valley between 2 ridgelines, classic defensive terrain. Single road and single road out, steep slopes on 3 sides. The kind of place you could hold against 10 times your number if you had good fields of fire and didn't mind dying. "Khalid knows we're coming," Emma said. "Maybe, or maybe he's just careful." Maddox zoomed in on the compound's north wall. "Your analysis still holds. Satellite imagery shows the same pattern of movement, same routine. Khalid's in there. I'd bet my retirement on it." Emma had spent 2 years studying Khalid al-Rashid. 2 years building a profile, tracking patterns, analyzing attack methodologies. The man was a ghost, a shadow, a name whispered in fear across 3 countries. He ran the most sophisticated IED network in Afghanistan. His bombs had killed 47 American soldiers in the last 8 months. And every time coalition forces got close, Khalid vanished. But Emma had found him. She'd identified a pattern in the communication intercepts, a signature in the timing of attacks. She'd triangulated safe houses, mapped support networks, and finally located what she believed was Khalid's primary base of operations. This compound. This valley. Tonight. "You sure about this, Hayes?" Maddox asked quietly. Emma knew what he was really asking. He was asking if her personal feelings were compromising her professional judgment. He was asking if the daughter of a fallen SEAL could be objective about hunting the men who'd killed American soldiers in Mogadishu 18 years ago. He was asking if she was chasing ghosts. "I'm sure, sir." Maddox studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay, but Hayes, you stick to the plan. You're our intel officer, not an assaulter. You stay back, you feed us information, and you do not go off mission to chase personal vendettas. Clear?" "Crystal, sir." It was a lie, and they both knew it. But some lies were necessary for the mission to continue. The crew chief held up 5 fingers. 5 minutes to the landing zone. Emma returned to her seat, buckled in, and ran through her mental checklist. One more time. M4A1 carbine with ACOG optic, Beretta M9 sidearm, 6 magazines for the M43 for the Beretta, radio with encrypted frequency, GPS unit, night vision goggles, flex cuffs, strobe light, knife, and in the left pocket of her plate carrier wrapped in waterproof plastic, a photograph. Emma and her father, taken the day before he deployed to Somalia. She was 9 years old, smiling gap-toothed at the camera sitting on his shoulders. He was looking up at her, and the expression on his face was pure love. She'd carried that photo through Boudi's, through every training exercise, through every deployment. And tonight, she'd carry it into the valley where Khalid al-Rashid waited. The Chinook's engines changed pitch. The crew chief gave the 30-second warning. Maddox's voice came over the radio, calm and professional. "Charlie Platoon, this is Reaper. We are 30 seconds to LZ Alpha. Weather is clear, visibility good. Remember your training, trust your teammates. Bring everyone home." A chorus of acknowledgments crackled through Emma's earpiece. The helicopter flared rotors, beating the thin mountain air into submission. Emma felt the skids touch down, light, gentle, barely a bump. "Go, go, go." The ramp dropped. Cold Afghan air rushed in, stealing the warmth from the cabin in seconds. Emma was up and moving, following Garrett down the ramp, boots hitting packed earth, the Chinook already lifting off behind them. Silence crashed down as the helicopter disappeared into the night sky. Emma crouched low, scanning her sector through night vision goggles. The world turned green and grainy shadows becoming shapes, shapes becoming landscape. They were 3 kilometers from the target, 3 kilometers of rough terrain, loose rock, and potential enemy observation posts. Maddox hand signaled Ranger file formation. "Move out." They moved. 12 shadows flowing across the mountainside spread out in a staggered line, each SEAL maintaining perfect spacing. No talking, no noise except the whisper of boots on stone and the occasional rattle of equipment. Emma settled into the rhythm of the patrol. Walk, pause, scan, walk, pause, scan. Her sector was left flank, 45 degrees from the line of advance. She watched for movement, for the telltale heat signature of a human form, for anything out of place in the natural order of the landscape. An hour passed, then 2. At the 2-hour 30 mark, Emma's radio crackled with 2 clicks. Maddox's signal to halt. The platoon froze. Emma went prone behind a boulder weapon, up searching for the threat. Maddox's voice, barely a whisper, over the radio. "Garrett, what do you have?" Garrett was their lead scout 50 meters ahead. His response came back tense. "Movement. Ridgeline 11 o'clock. 3 No 4 personnel, armed, moving parallel to our position." Damn, sentries. Khalid had pushed his security perimeter farther out than expected. "Can you identify?" Maddox asked. "Negative, too far, but they're tactical. Military movements, not shepherd patterns." Emma's heart rate kicked up. They were still a kilometer from the compound. If Khalid had security this far out, he was either paranoid or expecting company, or both. Maddox made the call. "Hold position. Let them pass. We're black on engagement unless compromised." The platoon sank deeper into cover. Emma wedged herself into a crevice between 2 rocks, making her silhouette as small as possible. Through her night vision, she could just make out the 4 figures on the ridgeline, moving with purpose, scanning the valley below. 5 minutes passed. The sentries continued their patrol route, moving away from Charlie Platoon's position. 10 minutes, 15. Finally, Maddox's voice. Clear. Resume movement. Tighten spacing. We're in the red zone now. They moved again faster now with the knowledge that time was working against them. Every minute they spent in Khalid's security zone was a minute closer to detection. At the 3-hour mark, they reached their final position, a ridgeline 800 meters from the compound. From here, they had a perfect view of the valley floor and the target building. Maddox set up the command post. Garrett assembled his sniper rifle. Killian prepared breaching charges. Doc Holloway laid out his medical supplies. And Emma pulled out her spotting scope and began her analysis. The compound was exactly as the satellite imagery had shown. Single-story building, thick walls, flat roof. 2 entrances visible, main door on the east wall, secondary door on the north. Guard positions at all 4 corners. Fortified, professional. But something was wrong. Emma scanned the compound again, checking heat signatures against the satellite data from 6 hours earlier. The numbers didn't match. There should have been 45 fighters. The satellite had counted 45 individual heat signatures. But Emma was counting 60, maybe more. Sir, she whispered into her radio, we have a problem. Maddox low-crawled to her position. What is it? Emma handed him the spotting scope. Count the guards. Maddox took his time, methodical and thorough. When he finished, his jaw was tight. Too many. Way too many. That's not all, Emma said. She pulled up the satellite imagery on her tablet, overlaying it with the current thermal view. Look at the movement patterns. 6 hours ago, the activity was concentrated in the main building. Now it's spread out. They're in fighting positions, overlapping fields of fire. This isn't a normal patrol routine, sir. This is an ambush posture, Maddox finished. Their eyes met. They know we're coming, Emma said. The question was how. How had Khalid known the mission was classified at the highest levels? The intelligence was fresh. The platoon had maintained strict communications discipline, unless someone had told him. Unless the leak wasn't in their operation, but in their own command structure. Maddox keyed his radio. All elements, this is Reaper. Mission is compromised. We are aborting. Prepare for exfil. The world exploded. Not literally, not yet, but floodlights blazed to life across the valley floor, turning night into day, and suddenly Emma's night vision goggles became searing white pain. She ripped them off, blinking away spots, and in the half-second it took her eyes to adjust, she heard the distinctive crack of AK-47 fire. Contact, contact, break right. Maddox's voice no longer calm, no longer professional. The voice of a warrior recognizing a trap closing. Emma rolled right as bullets chewed into the rocks where she'd been lying. The platoon scattered, each SEAL breaking for cover, returning fire, trying to establish some kind of defensive position. But they were exposed, silhouetted against the ridgeline. Perfect targets. Garrett's sniper rifle boomed. Once, twice. Somewhere in the valley, a floodlight exploded. Then another. The world strobed between darkness and blinding light. Emma, move your ass. That was Killian somewhere to her left. Emma pushed to her feet, ran in a crouch, her M4 up and tracking for targets. Muzzle flashes lit up the valley floor. Too many. Dozens. They were surrounded on 3 sides. This wasn't a firefight. This was an execution. Emma sprinted for a depression in the terrain, a shallow wash that might provide cover. She was 10 feet away when the ground beneath her right foot simply wasn't there anymore. She fell. The wash wasn't a wash. It was a crevasse hidden by shadows and loose rock. Emma dropped into darkness, her scream cut off as her body slammed into stone. She tumbled, bounced, felt something in her left wrist snap, and then she hit bottom. 5 meters down, maybe 6. Pain exploded through her body. Her wrist was definitely broken. Her ribs screamed. But she was alive. Emma lay still, gasping, trying to orient herself. Above, she could hear the firefight continuing. Maddox shouting orders. Garrett's rifles firing with metronomic precision. The platoon fighting for their lives. And then she heard something else. Voices. Speaking Pashto. Close. Very close. Emma's hand went to her M4. Gone. She'd lost it in the fall. Her Beretta. Still there. She drew it with her right hand. Her left wrist was useless and pressed herself against the wall of the crevasse. 3 Taliban fighters appeared at the rim above her. Silhouettes against the strobing battlefield lights. They were looking down into the crevasse, pointing, discussing. They'd seen her fall. Emma aimed the Beretta. Center mass on the first target. Squeezed the trigger. The pistol's report was deafening in the confined space. The first fighter dropped. Emma shifted targets, fired again. The second fighter spun away. But the third one was faster. He brought his AK up, fired a burst, and Emma felt something sledgehammer into her right shoulder. She went down. Above her, the third fighter was shouting. More voices joined him. They were coming down. Emma tried to raise the Beretta. Her right arm wouldn't respond. She transferred the pistol to her broken left hand, crying out as the movement sent white fire through her wrist. Footsteps on stone, getting closer. Emma's vision was tunneling. Blood loss, shock, maybe both. A face appeared above her. Weathered, bearded, dark eyes that held something Emma couldn't quite read. Khalid al-Rashid. The woman's SEAL, he said in perfect English. The intelligence officer. Lieutenant Emma Hayes. He knew her name. He'd been expecting her specifically. Emma tried to lift the Beretta. Khalid stepped on her wrist, the broken one, and Emma screamed. None of that, Khalid said almost gently. He removed the pistol from her hand. You fought well, bravely. Your father would be proud. Your father. The words penetrated Emma's fading consciousness. How? She managed. How do you know? Khalid knelt beside her, and in the flickering light from the battle above, Emma saw it again. The Rolex submariner on his wrist. Her father's watch. Because I knew him, Khalid said softly. I knew Commander Jack Hayes. I knew him very well. He reached out, and Emma tried to flinch away, but she was too weak. Sleep now, Khalid said. We have much to discuss when you wake. Much I need to know, and much I think you need to know as well. His hand pressed against the bullet wound in her shoulder. The pain was enormous, impossible, a sun-going supernova inside her body. Emma's last conscious thought was of her father, of the photograph in her pocket, of the way he'd looked at her in that picture with absolute love and absolute pride. Never quit, she thought. Never. And then the darkness took her. Consciousness returned in fragments. First came sound, a rhythmic beeping, steady and mechanical, medical equipment, then smell antiseptic clean linens, the faint metallic tang of blood. Finally, sensation crept back into Emma's body, and with it came pain. Her left wrist throbbed with each heartbeat. Her right shoulder felt like someone had driven a railroad spike through it and left it there. Her ribs protested every breath, but she was breathing. She was alive. Emma opened her eyes. White ceiling tiles, fluorescent lights turned low, the steady beep of a heart monitor. She was in a hospital bed, IV lines running into her left arm, her right shoulder wrapped in heavy bandages. A pulse oximeter glowed red on her index finger. Bagram Airfield. She had to be at Bagram, the only major American medical facility within 300 miles, which meant the SEALs had gotten her out. Memory flooded back. The ambush, the fall. Khalid's face above her, his voice saying impossible things. Your father would be proud. I knew Commander Jack Hayes, and the watch, her father's watch on Khalid's wrist. Emma tried to sit up. Her body immediately vetoed the idea, sending spears of pain through her shoulder and ribs. She gasped, fell back against the pillows. Easy there, Lieutenant. You've got 2 cracked ribs, a fractured wrist, and we pulled a 7.62 millimeter round out of your shoulder 4 hours ago. You're not going anywhere for a while. The voice came from her left. Emma turned her head carefully. A woman in navy medical white stood beside the bed checking Emma's IV lines. Late 40s, steel gray hair pulled back in a tight bun, captain's eagles on her collar. Her name tag read, Brennan. Commander Brennan, Emma managed. Her throat was raw, her voice barely more than a croak. How long? You've been unconscious for 6 hours. It's 1400 hours, March 16th. You're at Bagram Field Hospital Surgical Wing. I'm the chief medical officer. Brennan adjusted something on the IV drip. You're a very lucky woman, Lieutenant Hayes. That bullet missed your brachial artery by maybe 3 millimeters. Any closer and you would have bled out before your team got to you. My team. The others, Emma asked. The platoon? Brennan's expression softened slightly. 2 wounded, both non-critical. Everyone else made it out clean. Your lieutenant commander is outside. He's been waiting to see you since we brought you out of surgery. Send him in, please. Brennan hesitated. The SEAL brass want to debrief you. So does CIA. And NCIS has some questions about how the Taliban knew you were coming. She paused. But I told them all they can wait until I clear you medically. You've been through enough for one day. I need to see Maddox. Now. Something in Emma's tone must have communicated the urgency. Brennan studied her face, then nodded. 5 minutes, then you rest. She left. 30 seconds later, the door opened again. Lieutenant Commander Briggs Maddox looked like he'd aged 10 years in the last 12 hours. His eyes were red-rimmed, his jaw shadowed with stubble. He still wore his combat uniform, though someone had made him remove his body armor and weapons before entering the hospital. He crossed to Emma's bedside in 3 long strides. Hayes, Jesus Christ, I thought we'd lost you. It takes more than a bullet and a 20-foot fall to kill a Hayes, sir. Maddox's laugh was short and humorless. Your father used to say the same thing, right before he'd do something absolutely insane that should have gotten him killed. He pulled up a chair, sat down heavily. What happened down there, Emma? After you fell, Emma took a breath, organized her thoughts. She needed to tell this carefully precisely because what she was about to say would sound impossible. 3 Taliban fighters found me. I shot 2, the third one shot me, then Khalid al-Rashid appeared. Maddox leaned forward. You saw him? You're certain it was Khalid? I'm certain. Emma met his eyes. He knew my name, sir. He called me Lieutenant Emma Hayes. He knew I was the intelligence officer. He was expecting me specifically. Maddox's jaw tightened, confirming what we suspected. Someone leaked the mission details. There's more. Emma's hand went to her neck, searching for something that wasn't there. My dog tags. Where are they? In the drawer, along with your personal effects. Maddox reached into the bedside table, pulled out a clear plastic bag. Inside were Emma's dog tags, her watch, her Naval Academy class ring, and a photograph creased and worn. Emma and her father. The last picture taken before Mogadishu. But something else was in the bag, something that made Emma's heart stop. A Rolex Submariner, black face, steel bracelet, the engraving visible even through the plastic JH. Devgru, 1992. Where did this come from? Emma's voice was barely a whisper. Maddox picked up the bag, studied the watch through the plastic. Garrett found it at the site where you fell. It was lying on the ground near where we pulled you out. We figured it belonged to one of the Taliban fighters you shot. It belonged to my father. He never took it off. Not when he slept. Not when he deployed. Emma's voice was steady despite the storm of emotions churning inside her. Khalid was wearing it when he found me in the crevasse, and he said something else. Right before I passed out, he said he knew Commander Jack Hayes. He knew him very well. The room fell silent except for the steady beep of the heart monitor. Maddox set down the bag carefully, as if it might explode. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. No longer the commanding officer speaking to a subordinate. This was the voice of a man who'd served under Jack Hayes, who'd learned from him, who'd mourned him. Your father was the best SEAL I ever knew. He taught me everything worth knowing about this job. And when he died in Mogadishu, it broke something in the teams. We'd lost men before, but Ghost Hayes, Maddox shook his head. He was supposed to be invincible. They never found his body. No, the official report said he was MIA. Last seen during the battle, separated from his element, surrounded by hostiles. They searched for 3 days, but found nothing. Eventually, the Navy declared him killed in action. But never confirmed, Emma said. Emma, where are you going with this? Before Emma could answer, the door opened. 3 people entered, and the energy in the room shifted immediately. The first was a Navy captain in service dress blues, his chest heavy with ribbons. Square-jawed, bull-necked, with the kind of 1,000-yard stare that came from decades of combat. Captain Dalton Hendricks, SEAL Team 3 commander. The second was a man in his late 40s wearing khakis and a polo shirt, the civilian uniform of CIA field officers. Lean with gray hair and the watchful eyes of someone who'd spent a career in dark places. He had an air of quiet authority that suggested he was very good at his job and very dangerous when necessary. The third was a woman in her early 40s, dark suit, FBI credentials visible on her belt. Shoulder-length blonde hair, sharp green eyes that missed nothing. She moved with the controlled precision of someone trained in close-quarters combat. Captain Hendricks spoke first. Lieutenant Hayes, glad to see you're awake. His voice was gravel and gunpowder. I'm Captain Hendricks. This is Marcus Thorne from CIA and Special Agent Rachel Drummond from NCIS. We need to debrief you about last night's mission. Sir Dr. Brennan said, I know what Dr. Brennan said, but this is a national security matter, Lieutenant. We have reason to believe there's a security breach at the highest levels of command. We need your statement while the details are still fresh. Maddox stood. With respect, Sir Lieutenant Hayes has been through significant trauma. This can wait. It can't, Commander. This from Thorne, the CIA officer. His voice was softer than Hendricks, but somehow more dangerous. If there's a leak in our operational security, every SEAL in theater is compromised. Every mission, every patrol, every soldier. We need to know what Emma knows, and we need to know it now. Agent Drummond pulled out a digital recorder, set it on the bedside table. For the record, this is Special Agent Rachel Drummond, Naval Criminal Investigative Service, conducting an interview with 2nd Lieutenant Emma Hayes, SEAL Team 3 at Bagram Field Hospital. Date is March 16th, 2011. Time is 14:20 hours. She looked at Emma. "Lieutenant, do you consent to this interview?" Emma glanced at Maddox. He gave a slight nod. "I consent." "Good. Let's start with the basics. Walk me through last night's mission from your perspective." Emma took a breath and began. She described the helicopter insertion, the approach march, the discovery that the compound had too many fighters. The moment the floodlights came on, the firefight, her fall into the crevasse. She left nothing out. The professional part of her mind knew that every detail mattered, that somewhere in the chaos there might be a clue that would lead them to whoever had betrayed the mission. When she reached the part about Khalid, all three of her interrogators leaned in. "He knew your name," Drummond said. "He called you Lieutenant Emma Hayes specifically." "Yes." "And he knew your role as intelligence officer." "Yes." "What else did he say?" Emma hesitated. This was where it got complicated, where her personal history intersected with the mission in ways that would raise questions about her objectivity, her judgment, her fitness for duty. But she'd never lied in a debrief, and she wasn't going to start now. "He said my father would be proud. He said he knew Commander Jack Hayes." Emma gestured to the plastic bag on the table. "And he was wearing my father's watch. That Rolex belonged to Commander Jack Hayes. I'd know it anywhere." The room went very quiet. Captain Hendricks exchanged a glance with Thorne. Something passed between them, some unspoken communication. Thorne stepped closer to the bed. "Emma, I need to read everyone into a compartmentalized program. What I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest level. It doesn't leave this room." He pulled out his phone, made a call, spoke quietly for 30 seconds, then hung up. "I've cleared a secure conference room. We need to move this conversation somewhere we can talk freely." He looked at Dr. Brennan, who'd been standing silently by the door. "Doctor, can Lieutenant Hayes be moved?" Brennan's expression made it clear what she thought of that idea. "She should be resting." "I know, but this is critical." Brennan looked at Emma. "It's your call, Lieutenant." Emma didn't hesitate. "Get me a wheelchair." 10 minutes later, Emma sat in a windowless briefing room deep in the secure section of Bagram Airfield. The room was swept for listening devices daily. The walls were lined with soundproofing. Everything said here would remain here. Thorne had a laptop open, connected to a secure satellite link. He typed in a series of passwords, each one longer than the last, navigating through security protocols that would have made a cryptographer weep. Finally, a file opened. Operation Gothic Serpent, Somalia, October 1993. "Most of what happened in Mogadishu is public record," Thorne began. "The Rangers and Delta Force went in to capture key lieutenants in Mohammed Farah Aidid's organization. 2 Black Hawks got shot down. 18 Americans killed, 73 wounded. The battle lasted 15 hours. He pulled up a photograph. Young men in desert camouflage smiling at the camera. SEAL Team 6, Somalia deployment 1993. Emma's breath caught. Their third from the left was her father. 33 years old. The same pale blue eyes Emma saw in the mirror every morning. The same stubborn jaw. Commander Jack Hayes was assigned to DevGru SEAL Team 6 as a support element for Gothic Serpent, Thorne continued. His team wasn't involved in the main assault. They were providing surveillance and sniper overwatch from positions around the city. He clicked to the next slide. Timeline, October 3rd, 1993. Hour-by-hour breakdown of the battle. When the Black Hawks went down and the battle turned into a desperate extraction, DevGru was ordered to assist. Commander Hayes and his 3-man team pushed into the city to provide covering fire for the retreating Rangers. Another click. Incident report heavily redacted. At 2300 hours, Hayes reported that his team was cut off, surrounded, running low on ammunition. That was his last communication. When the rescue convoy finally reached his last known position at 0400 the next morning, they found 2 of his teammates dead. The third was wounded, but alive. "But no Jack Hayes," Emma said quietly. "No Jack Hayes, no body, no blood trail, no evidence of what happened to him, just gone." Thorne pulled up another document. This one was stamped with red letters, top secret, eyes only. What the public record doesn't show is what happened next. 12 days after the battle, on October 15th, 1993, the CIA station in Nairobi received a phone call from a Somali number. The caller claimed to have an American prisoner. He demanded $5 million in exchange for the prisoner's life. Emma's hands clenched on the armrests of her wheelchair. "The caller provided proof," Thorne continued. "He transmitted a video." He hesitated, his finger hovering over the play button. "Emma, what you're about to see is classified. It's never been released publicly. Your mother never saw this. As far as official records go, this video doesn't exist." He paused. Are you sure you want to watch it? Emma's voice was steady. Play it! Thorne clicked play. The video was grainy, shot on old equipment. It showed a dirt floor, rough stone walls, a cave, or an abandoned building. And kneeling in the center of the frame, hands bound behind his back, was Commander Jack Hayes. Emma's world stopped. Her father looked terrible. His face was bruised and swollen. Blood matted his hair. His uniform was torn and stained. But those eyes, the same pale blue eyes Emma had inherited, were still defiant. A figure moved into frame from behind. Young, maybe 19 or 20, thin beard, dark eyes burning with revolutionary fervor. He held an AK-47 like he'd been born with it. Khalid al-Rashid, 18 years younger, but unmistakably him. Khalid spoke in accented English. This man is Commander Jack Hayes, American Navy SEAL. We have him. We will kill him unless America pays $5 million. You have 7 days. He moved behind Jack, pressed the barrel of the AK against the back of his head. Jack spoke. His voice was rough, but clear. My name is Commander Jack Hayes, SEAL Team 6, service number 427-95432. They want money, He paused, swallowed hard. Please tell my daughter Emma I love her. I tried to come home. I'm sorry. The video cut to black. Emma couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what she'd just seen. Her father, alive, 12 days after the battle, alive and begging for his life. What happened? The words came out as barely a whisper. What did the government do? The silence that followed was answer enough. Drummond spoke, her voice gentle but firm. The United States government has a strict policy, Emma. We don't negotiate with terrorists. We don't pay ransoms. To do so would make every American soldier, every diplomat, every civilian abroad a target for kidnapping. So they did nothing. Emma's voice was flat, dead. They let him die. The decision came from the Joint Special Operations Command, Thorne said. Colonel Richard Vance, who was deputy commander at the time, he determined that paying the ransom would set a dangerous precedent, and that a rescue operation had minimal chance of success. Colonel Vance, Emma repeated. The name tasted like ashes. Where is he now? General Richard Vance, Hendricks corrected quietly. 4 stars, currently serving as deputy commander of CENTCOM. Of course, the man who'd condemned her father to death had been promoted, had climbed the ranks, was now one of the most powerful military commanders in the world. What happened after the 7 days? Emma asked. Thorne didn't answer immediately. He pulled up another file. This one was marked Video 2, unverified. 3 days after the deadline passed, the CIA received a second video. I have to warn you, Emma, this one is Show Me. Thorne hit play. The same setting, the same cave. But now Jack Hayes looked worse. Much worse. He'd been beaten severely. One eye was swollen shut. Blood covered his face and chest. Khalid stood beside him, speaking to the camera. America has chosen. 7 days have passed. No money, no negotiation. So now we show America the price of abandoning their soldiers. He raised a pistol, pressed it against Jack's temple. Emma's fingernails dug into the wheelchair's armrests, but something was wrong. Emma could see it even through the grainy footage. The angle was odd. Khalid's body language was off, and when he pulled the trigger, the screen went white. Audio cut out. When the video resumed 2 seconds later, Jack was lying on the ground, unmoving. Blood pooled beneath his head. The video ended. Emma stared at the blank screen. That's marked unverified, she said slowly. Why? Agent Drummond leaned forward. Because we could never confirm that the execution actually happened. The video quality is poor. There are inconsistencies in the footage. The jump cut the camera angle. It could have been staged. But the Navy declared my father killed in action. Based on the totality of circumstances, yes. He'd been missing for 3 weeks. The rescue probability was 0. And we had a video showing his apparent execution. The determination was made to close the case and notify next of kin. Emma's mind was racing, putting pieces together. You're saying my father might not have died in that cave. You're saying he might still have been alive after that video was made. The 3 officers exchanged glances. Thorne spoke carefully. What we're saying is that we could never verify the execution. The body was never recovered. There was no physical evidence. Just a video that may or may not have shown what it claimed to show. And 18 years later, Khalid al-Rashid is wearing my father's watch and telling me he knew Jack Hayes very well. Drummond was typing on her laptop, pulling up files. After your father was declared KIA, NCIS did a routine review of his service record. There was something unusual in his final reports before Operation Gothic Serpent. She turned the laptop so Emma could see. It was a memo dated September 28, 1993, 5 days before the Battle of Mogadishu, written by Commander Jack Hayes. Emma read to Naval Intelligence Command from CDR Jack Hayes DevGru, subject suspected intelligence leak, Operation Gothic Serpent classification. Top secret, I have reason to believe that classified operational details regarding Operation Gothic Serpent are being leaked to hostile forces. Pattern analysis of enemy movements suggests they have advanced knowledge of our troop positions and mission timelines. I suspect the leak originates from within JSOC command structure. Request immediate investigation and counterintelligence review. The memo was stamped received, but had no follow-up notation. No investigation. No response. Your father suspected a mole, Drummond said. Someone inside Joint Special Operations Command was feeding information to Aidid's forces. And 5 days later, 2 Black Hawks got shot down, Emma said quietly. Because they knew we were coming. Because someone told them. Thorne nodded grimly. We've been running this down for years. Very quietly. Very carefully. And what we've found is disturbing. He pulled up a financial document. Bank transfers, offshore accounts, a web of monetary transactions spanning 2 decades. In 1993, approximately $2 million was transferred from a numbered account in the Cayman Islands to a bank in Mogadishu. The recipient was traced to an associate of Aidid's organization. The sender, Thorne, paused. We couldn't identify them. The account was buried under layers of shell companies, but we kept following the money. Another document, more transfers. Emma saw dates 1995, 2001, 2008, 2010. The same account has been making regular deposits to various entities over the past 18 years. Arms dealers, Taliban financiers, Al-Qaeda facilitators. Always the same pattern, always untraceable. Until last year when our financial forensics team finally cracked through the shell companies. Thorne pulled up a name. Emma's blood turned to ice. The account belonged to a trust controlled by Richard Vance. The same Richard Vance who'd commanded Jack Hayes in Somalia. The same Richard Vance who'd decided not to pay the ransom. The same Richard Vance who was now a 4-star general. Vance is the leak, Emma said. Her voice was eerily calm. He sold intelligence to Aidid. That's why the Black Hawks were shot down. That's why 18 Americans died. We believe so, Drummond confirmed, but we can't prove it. Not yet. The financial evidence is circumstantial. We need direct testimony. We need someone who was there. Someone who can confirm that Vance was selling secrets. Jack Hayes could testify, Emma said. If he's alive. If Khalid kept him alive all these years. That's one possibility, Thorne agreed. But there's another darker scenario we need to consider. He pulled up communication intercepts, satellite imagery, pattern analysis reports. Over the past 18 years, there have been over 200 American casualties in Afghanistan and Iraq that we can't fully explain. Convoys ambushed despite taking randomized routes. Bases attacked with precision that suggests inside knowledge. IED placements that seem to predict our patrol patterns. Emma's skin crawled. You think Vance has been selling intelligence for 18 years? We think Vance has been selling intelligence for 18 years, and Khalid al-Rashid has been his primary customer. The pieces were falling into place. A picture emerging from the chaos. Jack Hayes discovers the leak, gets captured before he can report it. Khalid, working with Vance, stages an execution, but keeps Jack alive as insurance, as leverage, as proof of Vance's betrayal that could be deployed if necessary. Meanwhile, Vance rises through the ranks, continues to sell secrets, makes millions. Hundreds of Americans die, and Jack Hayes spends 18 years in captivity, knowing the truth, unable to tell anyone. The mission last night, Emma said slowly, Khalid knew we were coming. The intelligence about his location was provided by CENTCOM headquarters, Hendricks confirmed grimly, by General Vance's office. He set us up. Vance sent us into an ambush. We believe so. The question is why? Why now? Why you specifically? Emma thought about it, analyzed the pattern. Because I've been investigating Khalid for 2 years, building a profile, tracking connections. I was getting close to something. She looked up at Thorne. I was getting close to the link between Khalid and whoever was feeding him intelligence. And Vance knew it, Drummond said. He's had access to all your reports. He knew you were connecting dots that could lead back to him. So he tried to kill me, sent us into a trap hoping Khalid would eliminate the problem. But Khalid didn't kill you, Maddox said. He'd been silent through most of the briefing, but now he leaned forward. He captured you. He knew who you were, Jack Hayes' daughter. He specifically wanted you alive. Why? No one had an answer. The room fell silent, everyone lost in their own thoughts trying to puzzle through the implications. Finally, Emma spoke. I need to talk to Khalid. Drummond shook her head immediately. That's not possible. He's in the wind. After the firefight last night, he vanished. We have asset searching, but he'll contact us, Emma interrupted. He'll reach out. What makes you so certain? Emma looked at the frozen frame of the ransom video on Thorne's laptop. Her father kneeling in that cave asking his captors to tell Emma he loved her. Because this isn't over. Whatever game Khalid and Vance have been playing for 18 years, I'm a piece on the board now, and Khalid doesn't leave pieces unused. As if on cue, Maddox's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned, then went very still. Sir, Drummond prompted. Maddox turned the phone so everyone could see. It was a text message from an unknown number. No words, just a photograph. The photograph showed a man elderly and emaciated sitting in a stone cell. His hair and beard were white, his face was skeletal. But those eyes, pale blue unmistakable, were the same ones Emma had seen in the ransom video from 1993. Jack Hayes, alive, and beneath the photograph a message in English. Your father lives. Come alone to the coordinates below. You have 48 hours. Come armed, come prepared, but come alone or he dies. K. Emma stared at the screen. Her father, alive, after 18 years. It's a trap, Hendricks said immediately. An obvious trap. Of course it's a trap, Emma agreed. Her voice was steady, resolved. But I'm going anyway. Lieutenant Hayes, sir, with respect, my father has been a prisoner for 18 years because of a traitor in our own ranks. He's been tortured, isolated, abandoned by his country, and now I have a chance to bring him home. Emma met Hendricks's eyes. I'm going. You can court-martial me after I get back. You can barely walk, Drummond pointed out. You have a broken wrist, cracked ribs, and a bullet wound. You're in no condition for a rescue mission. Then I have 48 hours to get into condition. Maddox stood. She won't be going alone. Hendricks rounded on him. Commander, you can't seriously be considering. Ghost Hayes was my mentor. He taught me everything I know about being a SEAL. If there's a chance, any chance that he's alive, and we can bring him home, I'm taking it. Maddox's voice was iron. And I know 11 other SEALs who'll say the same thing. This is insanity, Hendricks said, but his voice lacked conviction. Thorne had been quiet studying the photograph on Maddox's phone. Now he spoke. There's another factor to consider. If Jack Hayes is alive, he's the only person who can definitively prove Vance's treason. He was there in Somalia. He knows what Vance did. His testimony would be unimpeachable. You're suggesting we use a rescue mission to build a legal case? Drummond sounded skeptical. I'm suggesting that bringing Jack Hayes home serves multiple purposes. We get back a fallen hero, we expose a traitor, and we shut down an intelligence leak that's been killing our soldiers for 2 decades. Hendricks was wavering. Emma could see it in his face. Even if I authorize this, which I'm not saying I am, how would you do it? Khalid says, come alone. The moment he sees a SEAL team, he'll execute Hayes. Emma had already been thinking through scenarios. Then he doesn't see a SEAL team. He sees me, alone, unarmed, exactly what he asked for. And the team? Ghost protocols, Maddox said. We learned them from Commander Hayes. Deep cover insertion, no thermal signature, no communications. We position assets in a 3-kilometer radius, completely dark, and wait for Emma's signal. What signal? Emma reached up, touched the chain around her neck. Her dog tags. My father gave me these when I joined the Navy. They're standard issue, except for one modification he made. She pulled them out, showed the group. See this rivet on the corner? It's actually a micro GPS transmitter. Battery life of 72 hours. If I activate it, it sends a continuous signal on an encrypted frequency. Maddox smiled grimly. Ghost Hayes was paranoid about his people getting captured. He built tracking devices into everything. If Emma activates that transmitter, we'll know her exact location within 5 meters. And then we go get her. And Commander Hayes. And we end this. Hendricks stood paced to the window, stood there for a long moment. When he turned back, his expression was resolved. 48 hours. You get Commander Hayes out, you get evidence against Vance, and you all come home alive. Can you do that? Maddox and Emma answered in unison. Hooyah! Underscore, 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 underscore. The coordinates Khalid had sent pointed to a location 40 kilometers northeast of Bagram, deep in the Tora Bora region. The same mountain range where Osama bin Laden had once hidden in cave complexes so vast and intricate that an entire army could disappear into them. 48 hours had become 36, then 24. Now Emma had less than 12 hours before college deadline, and her body still felt like it had been dropped off a building, which technically it had. Doc Holloway had done what he could. Extra strength painkillers that dulled the edges without compromising her alertness. A carbon fiber brace for her wrist that provided support while maintaining some mobility. Compression wraps for her ribs. Antibiotics to prevent infection in the bullet wound. But there was no medical miracle that could erase the fact that Emma was about to walk into a hostile environment while operating at maybe 60% capacity. The planning session had stretched through the night. Maddox and his team had mapped out approach routes, fallback positions, extraction points. They'd studied every intelligence report on college operating patterns, every scrap of information about cave complexes in Tora Bora. Now, as dawn broke over Bagram Airfield, the team assembled in a secure hangar for final preparations. 12 SEALs, each one a veteran of dozens of combat operations. Each one volunteering for a mission that officially didn't exist. If something went wrong, there would be no rescue, no backup, no acknowledgement that they'd ever been there. Ghost protocols just as Maddox had promised. Wade Garrett was checking his M110 sniper rifle with the methodical precision of a master craftsman. At 51, he was the oldest member of the team. He'd served 2 tours with Jack Hayes back in the 90s. When Maddox had asked him to volunteer, Garrett's response had been immediate. Ghost saved my life in Beirut. I owe him. I'm in. Dane Killian was loading breaching charges into his pack, enough C4 to blow through a mountain if necessary. 29 years old, built like a linebacker with a demolitions expertise that bordered on artistic. He'd never met Jack Hayes, but the legend was enough. Every SEAL knew the Ghost Hayes stories. Every SEAL wanted to be half that good. Doc Holloway organized his medical supplies for the 3rd time, counting trauma bandages and morphine syringes, preparing for every contingency. 33 years old, a former Army Ranger who'd cross-trained as a combat medic before joining the teams. He'd seen enough wounded soldiers to know that this mission would likely produce more. The rest of the platoon moved through their own rituals. Weapons checks, communications tests, mental preparation for what was coming. Maddox stood at the front of the hangar studying a 3-dimensional terrain model someone had built overnight. The model showed the valley where Khalid waited, the cave entrances, the likely defensive positions. Emma approached, moving carefully to avoid jarring her ribs. Sir, I've been thinking about Khalid's endgame. Maddox looked up. Go on. He's had 18 years to kill my father. 18 years to eliminate the one witness who could expose Vance. But he didn't. He kept him alive. Insurance policy, Maddox said. As long as Jack was alive, Khalid had leverage over Vance. But now he's inviting me to come get him. He's offering to give up his leverage. Why? It was the question that had been nagging at Emma since the photograph arrived. What had changed? What had shifted the calculus? After 18 years of status quo, Maddox was quiet for a moment, thinking it through. Khalid is 51 years old, he finally said. He's been fighting since he was a teenager. Taliban, Al-Qaeda coalition forces. How many men do you think he's killed? Hundreds. Maybe thousands if you count the IEDs. And how many friends do you think he's lost? Emma saw where Maddox was going. You think he's tired? I think he's a man who's been at war for 3 decades. I think he's seen enough death to fill a cemetery. And I think maybe, just maybe, he wants it to end. By giving us my father. By exposing Vance. By doing one good thing before he dies. Maddox's voice was soft. By making amends for keeping a good man in a cage for 18 years. It was a generous interpretation, maybe too generous for a man who'd killed 47 Americans in the last 8 months alone. But Emma had seen something in Khalid's eyes during those few moments in the crevasse. Not just cruelty, not just fanaticism. Something that might have been regret. Your father would be proud, he'd said. We should assume it's still a trap, Emma said. Khalid might want redemption, but Vance definitely wants us dead. Agreed. Which is why we're bringing enough firepower to level a small city. A noise from the hangar entrance made them both turn. CIA officer Marcus Thorne walked in, accompanied by NCIS agent Rachel Drummond. Both looked like they'd been up all night. Thorne carried a laptop. Drummond had a file folder thick with documents. We have updates, Thorne said without preamble. And they're not good. The team gathered around as Thorne opened his laptop. General Vance knows something's happening. We've intercepted communications from CENTCOM headquarters. He's been making unusual inquiries about SEAL Team 3's current operational status. He's also been trying to access classified files about Operation Gothic Serpent. Does he know about the rescue mission? Maddox asked. We don't think so. Captain Hendricks has been keeping this compartmented, but Vance is suspicious. He knows something triggered after Emma was recovered. Drummond opened her folder. There's more. We've been digging into Vance's financial records following the money trail. In the last 72 hours, he's moved approximately $8 million through his offshore accounts. That's unusual. It suggests he's either preparing to run or preparing to pay for something expensive. Like what? Like a kill team, Thorne said grimly. We have intelligence suggesting Vance has contacted a private military contractor. Former Delta operators now working for the highest bidder. 20 men heavily armed already in Afghanistan. Emma felt cold settle in her stomach. He's sending them after us. We believe so. If Vance suspects we're attempting to rescue Jack Hayes, he can't let it happen. Hayes is the only witness who can directly implicate him. Vance needs your father dead before he can testify. And he needs us dead too, Maddox added. Everyone who knows the truth becomes a liability. The implications were staggering. This wasn't just a rescue mission anymore. It was a race against time, against resources, against a four-star general with unlimited power and a desperate need to cover his crimes. How long before the contractors reach the area? Maddox asked. Thorne checked his laptop. Our best estimate, 12 to 18 hours. They're positioning assets in Jalalabad now. The same timeline as Khalid's deadline. Convenient, or planned. Khalid and Vance might be coordinating, Emma said. Khalid invites us in, keeps us busy, and Vance's contractors hit us from behind. It's possible, Drummond agreed, but there's a counter-argument. If Khalid wanted you dead, he could have killed you in that crevasse. Instead, he let you live. He made sure the SEALs found you. Maybe he needed Emma alive to bait the trap. Or maybe he's not working with Vance anymore. Maybe that relationship has soured. Too many unknowns, too many variables. Maddox made a decision. We move up the timeline. Instead of waiting for dark, we insert at 1400 hours. 4 hours from now. We use daylight to our advantage, get in position before Vance's people can deploy. That gives us less time to prepare, Garrett pointed out. And it gives Vance's contractors less time to set up their ambush. We take the risk. Around the hangar, SEALs began moving faster. The operation had just become real, immediate, urgent. Emma returned to her gear. Her M4A1 carbine had been cleaned and reassembled. Her Beretta M9 loaded with a fresh magazine. She'd be going in light, no body armor, no helmet, nothing that would make Khalid suspicious. Just weapons and the clothes on her back, and her father's dog tags with the hidden GPS transmitter that would bring the cavalry if things went sideways. When things went sideways. Maddox appeared beside her as she was loading magazines. You don't have to do this, Emma. We can find another way. There is no other way. Khalid asked for me specifically. If anyone else shows up, he'll kill my father and disappear. And if you show up and he kills you both? Emma looked at him. Really looked at him. Saw the concern in his eyes, the weight of command that meant every death was his responsibility. My father spent 18 years in a cave because he tried to do the right thing. He tried to expose a traitor, and it cost him everything. If there's a chance, any chance to finish what he started, I have to take it. You're so much like him, Maddox said quietly. Same stubbornness. Same refusal to leave anyone behind. Jack would be proud of you. Then let's make sure he gets the chance to tell me himself. 4 hours later, Emma sat in the open door of an MH-60 Blackhawk, watching the Hindu Kush Mountains slide past below. The helicopter flew low, hugging the terrain, using valleys and ridgelines to mask its approach. Somewhere behind them, invisible and silent, 2 more Blackhawks carried the rest of the SEAL team. They'd insert at different locations, approach from different angles, establish a perimeter 3 kilometers out from the target coordinates. Ghost protocols. No communications except emergencies. No lights, no thermal signatures. Just highly trained warriors moving through hostile territory like smoke. Emma's insertion point was a small plateau 2 kilometers south of the cave complex, close enough to walk in. Far enough that the helicopter noise wouldn't alert Khalid's sentries. The pilot's voice crackled in her headset. 2 minutes. Emma checked her gear one final time. M4A1 secured across her chest. Beretta on her hip. 6 magazines, knife, water. The dog tags around her neck felt heavier than usual, weighted with the knowledge of what they represented. Her lifeline, the signal that would bring rescue or revenge. 1 minute. The Black Hawk flared rotors, beating the thin air. The plateau rushed up to meet them. Green light! Go, go, go! Emma jumped. Her boots hit rocky ground, knees flexing to absorb the impact. The pain in her ribs flared hot and sharp, but she pushed through it, moving away from the landing zone as the Black Hawk lifted off and disappeared over the ridge. Silence crashed down. Just wind and the distant cry of a hawk. Emma was alone. She oriented herself using the GPS unit, identified the direction she needed to travel, and started walking. 2 kilometers through rough terrain with a broken wrist and cracked ribs. It would take 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours. She had time. The first hour passed without incident. Emma moved carefully, using rocks for cover, pausing frequently to scan for threats. The mountains were eerily quiet. No shepherds, no villagers, no sign of Taliban fighters. Too quiet. At the 90-minute mark, Emma crested a ridge and saw the valley below. It was smaller than the satellite imagery had suggested, maybe 500 meters across. Sheer cliffs on 3 sides created a natural amphitheater. At the far end, she could see dark openings in the rock face. Caves. Dozens of them. And standing in the center of the valley, clearly visible, was a single figure. Khalid al-Rashid. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, facing Emma's direction, as if he'd known exactly where she'd approach from, as if he'd been waiting for hours. Emma pulled out a small pair of binoculars, studied him through the magnification. Khalid wore traditional Afghan clothing, no visible weapons. His beard caught the afternoon sunlight, gray and white, threading through black. Even from half a kilometer away, Emma could see the weariness in his posture. This was a man at the end of something. A long journey, a longer war. Emma descended into the valley. Every step felt like walking into a trap, but she kept moving. She'd come too far to stop now. At 200 meters, Khalid raised one hand in greeting. Not threatening, almost friendly. At 100 meters, Emma could see his face clearly. The same features from the crevasse, the same dark eyes that had witnessed too much. At 50 meters, she stopped. "That's close enough, Lieutenant Hayes," Khalid called out. His English was perfect, cultured even. "I appreciate you coming alone as requested." "Where is my father?" Khalid gestured toward the caves behind him. "In there, alive, relatively healthy considering. But before I take you to him, we need to talk. We don't need to do anything. Release my father, and this ends peacefully." "Peacefully?" Khalid smiled, but there was no humor in it. "There is no peace for men like us, Lieutenant. We are instruments of war. We don't get peaceful endings." "Then what do you want?" Khalid was quiet for a moment, seeming to gather his thoughts. "I want to tell you a story about your father, about the last 18 years, about why I kept him alive when I should have killed him. I don't care about your stories. I want my father. You'll get him, I promise you that. But first you need to understand, because what I'm about to give you is more than just your father. It's justice. It's truth. It's the evidence you need to destroy the man who betrayed you both." Emma's hand moved closer to her M4. "General Vance." "Ah, so you know." Khalid nodded slowly. "Good. That saves time. Yes, Richard Vance. The man who sold your country's secrets for money. The man who got 18 American soldiers killed in Mogadishu because he told Aidid exactly where the helicopters would be. The man who has been feeding me intelligence for 18 years and who has made millions of dollars in blood money. And you helped him. You're as guilty as he is." "Yes," Khalid said simply. "I am guilty of this and 1,000 other sins. I have killed many men, American soldiers, Afghan civilians, fellow Muslims who disagreed with my interpretation of jihad. My hands are stained red to the elbows." He looked down at those hands as if seeing them for the first time. "But I am tired, Lieutenant Hayes. I am 51 years old. I have been fighting since I was 15. 36 years of war, and I am ready for it to end." "Then surrender. Face justice." "I will, but not the justice of American courts and American prisons. I will face the justice of Allah when my time comes." He looked up at her. "Which will be soon. I have cancer, liver, stage 4. The doctors in Pakistan give me 3 months, maybe 4. Emma felt something shift inside her. Not sympathy exactly, but understanding. Khalid wasn't planning for the future because he didn't have one. "So this is your deathbed confession," she said. "In a way, but more than that. This is my attempt to do one good thing before I die, to balance the scales, if only slightly." He reached into his pocket, slowly giving Emma time to track the movement. She tensed, ready to draw her weapon. But what Khalid pulled out wasn't a gun. It was a small USB drive. "On this drive is 18 years of communications between myself and General Vance. Every message, every transaction, every piece of intelligence he sold me, every payment I sent him. Dates, times, amounts, operational details. Everything you need to prove his treason. He held out the drive. Emma didn't move. Why help us now? Khalid's expression softened. Because of your father. Because in 18 years of holding him prisoner, Jack Hayes never broke, never begged, never compromised his honor. Every day I brought him food. Every day he asked about you. Is Emma safe? Is she happy? Every single day. He paused and Emma saw moisture in his eyes. I lied. I told him you were safe. That you had grown up, gone to college, gotten married, had children. I told him you were happy and far away from war. Because I could not bear to tell him the truth. That his daughter had become a soldier. That she had followed him into the teams. That she was hunting me. Emma's throat was tight. He asked about me every day. Every day. For 18 years. 6,570 days. And I realized something, Lieutenant. I realized that I was holding a better man than I would ever be. A man who endured torture and isolation and despair and still maintained his humanity. Still cared about his daughter more than his own suffering. Khalid took a step forward. Emma's hand moved to her M4, but he stopped, holding the USB drive out between them. Your father is a hero, a real hero. Not like the propaganda posters and the medal ceremonies. He is a man who sacrificed everything for his principles. And I am a man who has sacrificed his principles for everything. I want to give him back to you. And I want to give you the weapon to destroy the man who put him in that cage. Emma stared at the USB drive, at Khalid's outstretched hand. How do I know this is real? How do I know it's not a setup? You don't. You have to trust me. Trust you. The man who's killed 47 Americans in the last year. The man who kept your father alive when Vance wanted him dead. The man who is about to die himself and wants to do one final good deed. Emma made her decision. She stepped forward, took the USB drive, and immediately stepped back. Khalid smiled. Smart. Never trust your enemy completely. Where is my father? Follow me. Khalid turned and walked toward the caves. Emma followed at a distance, her weapon ready, her senses screaming that this was still a trap despite everything Khalid had said. They entered the largest cave opening. Darkness swallowed them immediately. Emma's eyes struggled to adjust. There is a light switch ahead, Khalid said. I will turn it on slowly. Don't shoot. A click. Dim electric light flickered to life, powered by a generator Emma could hear rumbling somewhere deeper in the complex. The cave opened into a corridor carved from living rock. Old, perhaps ancient. These caves had been used for centuries, maybe millennia. Now they served as Khalid's sanctuary. They walked for 2 minutes, descending deeper. The temperature dropped. The air grew stale. Finally, Khalid stopped in front of a heavy metal door, the kind of door that belonged in a prison, not a cave. He pulled out a key ring, selected one, and inserted it into the lock. I should prepare you, he said quietly. Your father is not the man you remember. 18 years in captivity changes a person. He may not recognize you immediately. He may not want to believe you're real. Just open the door. Khalid turned the key. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Inside was a cell, maybe 10 feet by 10 feet. A cot, a bucket, a single light bulb hanging from the ceiling, and sitting on the cot staring at the wall with empty eyes was a man. Emma's breath stopped. He was so thin, his hair had gone completely white. His beard hung to his chest. His skin was pale, translucent, stretched tight over bones. He wore simple clothes, loose and clean, but worn from years of use. But those eyes, even hollowed by suffering, even empty with despair, those eyes were the same pale blue that Emma saw in the mirror every morning. Jack Hayes, her father, alive. Dad, Emma whispered. The man didn't react, didn't turn, didn't acknowledge her presence. Khalid spoke softly. Commander Hayes, you have a visitor. Still nothing. Emma stepped into the cell, moved closer. Her father was staring at a wall where he'd scratched marks. Thousands of them. Emma realized with a shock that they were tally marks. Days. 18 years of days, each one carefully recorded. 6,570 marks. Dad, it's me. It's Emma. Jack Hayes slowly turned his head, looked at her with those empty eyes. You're not real, he said. His voice was rough, from disuse, cracked and broken. You're not real. Emma died. Khalid told me. Car accident, when she was 23. You're not real. Emma felt her heart shatter. Khalid had lied to her father, had told him his daughter was dead, had let Jack Hayes believe for years that Emma had died, that his sacrifice had been for nothing. I'm real, Dad. I'm here. Look at me. She knelt in front of him, took his hands. They were cold, trembling. I'm Second Lieutenant Emma Hayes, Navy SEAL. I graduated from Annapolis in 2007. I made it through Boo Days in 2009. I've been looking for you for 18 years. Jack stared at her hands holding his, at the dog tags around her neck, at her face. Emma, he whispered. My Emma, you're alive. Yes, Dad, I'm alive, and I'm taking you home. And then Jack Hayes, the legendary ghost, the hardest SEAL who ever lived, broke down and cried. 18 years of tears that he'd been holding back flooded out in great racking sobs. Emma pulled him close, held him like he'd held her when she was a child, and cried with him. Behind them, Khalid watched silently. When Emma looked back at him, she saw tears on his face too. I am sorry, Khalid said quietly, for all of it, for what I did to him, for what I took from you both. Emma wanted to hate him, wanted to pull her weapon and shoot him for every day her father had suffered. But looking at Khalid's face, seeing genuine remorse there, she found she couldn't. You're letting him go, she said. That counts for something. Not enough. It will never be enough. But it is what I can do. A sound from outside the cave, distant, getting closer. Helicopters. Emma's blood ran cold. Too soon. The SEALs weren't supposed to insert for another hour, which meant these weren't SEALs. Khalid heard it too. His face went hard. Vance's contractors. They're early. How many? If Vance sent a kill team 20, maybe more. All former special operations, all well-armed. Emma pulled out her radio, keyed the transmit button. Reaper, this is Hayes. Multiple helicopters inbound to target location. Unknown hostile force. I have the package. Repeat, I have the package. Need immediate extraction. Maddox's voice came back tense. Roger, all elements converging on your position. ETA 15 minutes. Can you hold? Emma looked around the cave. One entrance, stone walls, no cover. Her father could barely walk, and she was wounded, limited ammunition, fighting at 60% capacity against 20 professional killers. Negative, she said into the radio. We need to move. I'm activating the beacon. She reached up, pressed the hidden button on her dog tags. Somewhere a GPS signal started transmitting. Khalid was already moving. There's another way out, a tunnel. It comes out 200 meters north, hidden in the rocks. I can guide you. Why would you help us now? Because I didn't keep your father alive for 18 years just to let Vance's mercenaries kill him now. Khalid pulled a pistol from somewhere, checked the magazine. And because I told you, I want to do one good thing before I die. The helicopter sounds were getting louder. Minutes away. Emma made a decision. Dad, can you walk? Jack Hayes stood on shaky legs. I can do whatever I need to do. Never quit. Despite everything, Emma smiled. That's right. Never. Then we move. Now, Khalid led them deeper into the cave complex through passages that twisted and turned, descended and climbed. Jack leaned on Emma, his weight barely registering. He probably weighed 130 pounds soaking wet. Behind them, Emma heard the helicopters land, heard voices shouting orders, heard boots hitting stone as the contractors deployed. Professional, fast, deadly. How much farther? Emma asked. 50 meters. The tunnel narrows. You'll have to crawl the last 10 meters. They reached the narrow section. Emma could see daylight ahead, faint but real. You first, she told her father. I'm not leaving you. Dad, you're getting out of here. That's an order. Jack Hayes looked at his daughter. Really looked at her, seeing not the 9-year-old girl he'd left behind, but the warrior she'd become. You grew up strong, he said, just like I hoped. I had a good teacher. Jack squeezed her hand, then dropped to his belly and started crawling toward the light. Khalid was listening to the sounds from the main cave. They're searching systematically. They'll find this passage in 5 minutes. Then we have 5 minutes. Emma took up a position at the mouth of the narrow tunnel, her M4 aimed back the way they'd come. Khalid knelt beside her, his pistol ready. You don't have to stay, Emma said. You've done enough. I have spent 18 years as a coward, hiding behind others, letting brave men die for my causes. Perhaps it is time I face the enemy myself. You're going to die. Yes, but I will die fighting beside a SEAL instead of running from one. That seems fitting. 4 minutes. Emma could hear the contractors getting closer. Tactical communications, precise movements. They knew what they were doing. 3 minutes. Jack's voice from ahead. I'm through. Keep going, Emma called back. North, stay low. The SEALs will find you. 2 minutes. The first contractor appeared at the far end of the passage, 30 meters away. He saw Emma and Khalid brought up his weapon. Emma fired first. 3-round burst. The contractor went down. But now they knew where she was. Go, Khalid shouted. I'll hold them. We go together or not at all. 1 minute. Gunfire erupted. The contractors poured fire into the passage, bullets sparking off stone. Emma and Khalid returned fire, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. "Emma Hayes," a voice shouted from the darkness. American accent. Southern. "General Vance sends his regards. You should have stayed out of this." Emma didn't waste breath responding. She fired another burst, changed magazines. Beside her, Khalid grunted. He'd been hit. Blood spread across his chest. "Go," he gasped. "Please, let me do this one thing right." Emma looked at him, at this man who'd kept her father prisoner for 18 years, who'd killed so many Americans, who was now bleeding out while trying to save her. "Thank you," she said. "Tell your father." Khalid coughed blood. "Tell him I'm sorry, and tell him he was right. Honor matters more than victory." Emma scrambled backward into the narrow tunnel. The last thing she saw was Khalid rising to his feet, pistol in hand, charging toward the contractors with a war cry that had been old when Alexander the Great marched through these same mountains. The sound of gunfire was deafening. Khalid's cry was cut short, but it bought Emma the time she needed. She crawled through the narrow section, emerged into daylight, found her father crouched behind a boulder. "Run!" she shouted. They ran. Behind them, contractors poured out of the cave mouth. Bullets chewed into the rock around them. Emma returned fire, forcing them back into cover. Her radio crackled. "Hayes, this is Garrett. I have visual. Get down." Emma tackled her father, drove them both behind a rock outcropping. The boom of Garrett's M110 sniper rifle echoed across the valley. Once, twice, 3 times. 3 contractors dropped. Then the entire mountain seemed to open fire. The SEALs had arrived. Maddox's voice over the radio, calm and professional. "All elements weapons free. Protect the package." 12 Navy SEALs against 20 contractors. The contractors had numbers. The SEALs had training experience and an intense personal motivation. It wasn't a fair fight. Emma pulled her father closer to cover as the firefight raged. M4 carbines cracked. The heavy boom of Garrett's sniper rifle punctuated the chaos. Someone fired a grenade launcher. The explosion shook the ground. 5 minutes of sustained combat. Then silence. Maddox appeared, moving low and fast. "Hayes, you hit." "Negative. Package is secure." Maddox looked at Jack Hayes, recognition flooding his face. "Ghost. Jesus Christ, it's really you." Jack managed a weak smile. "Good to see you too, Maddox. You got old? You got skinny. We'll call it even." Doc Holloway arrived with his medical bag. "Commander Hayes, I need to check you over." "I'm fine." "With respect, sir, you've been a prisoner for 18 years. You're not fine. Let me work." While Holloway examined Jack, Emma walked back toward where they'd emerged from the tunnel. She needed to see. Khalid's body lay 20 meters into the cave passage. He'd taken at least 10 bullets, maybe more. His eyes were open, staring at nothing. Emma knelt beside him, closed his eyes. "You did one good thing," she said quietly. "Rest now." She returned to find Maddox coordinating extraction. 2 Black Hawks were inbound. Casualties were being triaged. "The contractors," Emma asked. 18 KIA, 2 wounded and detained. "We lost nobody." Maddox's expression was grim satisfaction. "They were good. We were better." "And Vance, Agent Drummond is coordinating with the FBI as we speak. Between the USB drive Khalid gave you and your father's testimony, Vance is done." The sound of helicopters grew louder. Their ride home. Emma sat beside her father as Doc Holloway finished his examination. "You need a hospital," Holloway told Jack. "Real medical care. But you'll live." "I've lived this long," Jack said. "A few more hours won't kill me." He looked at Emma. Really looked at her. His daughter. The baby girl he'd left behind. Now a warrior in her own right. "I'm proud of you," he said. "So proud. I learned from the best. You became better than I ever was." The Black Hawk landed. Maddox helped Jack aboard. Emma climbed in after him, took the seat beside her father. As the helicopter lifted off, Emma looked down at the valley. At the caves where Jack Hayes had spent 18 years. At Khalid's body already being covered by the team. A complicated man. A war criminal and a killer. But in the end, a man who tried to make amends. Maybe that counted for something. The helicopter banked, headed west toward Bagram. Emma took her father's hand. He squeezed back his grip, weak but real. "It's over, Dad. You're coming home." Jack Hayes closed his eyes. For the first time in 18 years, he smiled. "Home," he whispered. "I never thought I'd see it again. Never quit. You taught me that. And you proved it. You never quit looking for me. Never." The helicopter flew west toward the setting sun, carrying them both toward whatever came next. Justice, healing, home, and somewhere in Tampa, Florida, General Richard Vance's world was about to come crashing down. Underscore, 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 underscore. 6 months later, the house in Virginia Beach looked exactly as Emma remembered it. Same white siding, same blue shutters, same wooden porch where she'd sat with her father on summer evenings, counting stars and talking about everything and nothing. The house where she'd grown up. The house her mother had kept for 18 years, hoping against hope that Jack Hayes would someday walk back through that door. Catherine Hayes had died in 2008, never knowing her husband was still alive. But the house remained. And now, finally, Jack Hayes had come home. Emma pulled her car into the driveway, cut the engine. Through the living room window, she could see her father moving around inside, slowly, carefully, but moving. 6 months of physical therapy, proper nutrition, and medical care had worked miracles. Jack had gained back 30 pounds. The color had returned to his face. The emptiness had left his eyes. He would never be the same man who deployed to Somalia in 1993. That man was gone lost somewhere in 18 years of captivity. But the man who remained was finding his way back to life. Emma got out of the car, grabbed the grocery bags from the trunk. Tonight was special. Tonight they were having guests. She walked up the porch steps, pushed open the door. "Dad, I'm back." Jack appeared from the kitchen wearing an apron that said "World's Best Dad" that Emma had bought him as a joke. He was attempting to cook dinner. The results were questionable. "Thank God," Jack said. "I think I'm burning the chicken." Emma laughed, set down the groceries, and went to rescue dinner. As she worked in the kitchen, she glanced at the television in the living room. CNN was playing volume low. The headline, "Four-star general convicted of treason, faces execution." The trial had lasted 3 months. The verdict had come down yesterday. General Richard Vance had been found guilty on all counts: treason, conspiracy to commit murder, espionage. 247 counts of negligent homicide. The evidence had been overwhelming. The USB drive Khalid had given Emma contained 18 years of communications between Vance and various terrorist organizations. Every transaction, every piece of intelligence sold, every payment received. And then there was Jack Hayes' testimony. For 2 days, Jack had sat in that courtroom and told his story. The capture, the ransom demand, the staged execution, 18 years in captivity while Vance profited from his silence. The jury had deliberated for 40 minutes. The sentence, death by firing squad. Jack walked into the kitchen, saw what Emma was watching, and quietly changed the channel. "It's over," he said. "We don't need to watch. Don't you want to see it? See him pay for what he did?" Jack was quiet for a moment. Then, "I spent 18 years thinking about revenge, imagining what I'd do to the people who put me in that cage. But now that it's happening," he shook his head, "I just feel empty. Vance's death won't give me back those years, won't bring back the 200 soldiers who died because of his greed. It's just done." Emma understood. Revenge was a cold meal, and they'd been living on it for too long. A knock at the door interrupted them. Emma went to answer. Standing on the porch was Lieutenant Commander Briggs Maddox, looking uncomfortable in civilian clothes. Behind him were Garrett Killian and Doc Holloway. "Evening, Lieutenant," Maddox said with a grin. "We brought beer." Emma stepped aside to let them in. "You're early." Garrett was hungry. You know how he gets. The SEALs filed into the house, and suddenly the place felt alive again. Loud, full of laughter and camaraderie, and the kind of easy brotherhood that only warriors understood. Jack emerged from the kitchen, and the room fell silent. Then Maddox stepped forward, came to attention, and saluted. "Commander Hayes, good to have you back, sir." Jack returned the salute, then pulled Maddox into a hug. "Good to be back, Reaper." One by one, the SEALs came forward, shook Jack's hand, embraced him, welcomed him home. Garrett was the last. The old sniper looked at his former mentor with eyes that held 18 years of grief and guilt. "I'm sorry, Ghost," Garrett said quietly. "We should have found you sooner." Jack gripped his shoulder. "You found me when it mattered. That's all that counts." They moved to the back porch where Emma had set up a table. The evening was warm, the sky clear, perfect Virginia weather. As they ate and drank and told stories, Emma watched her father. Really watched him. He was smiling, laughing, engaging with his brothers in a way she hadn't seen in the 6 months since the rescue. He was healing. After dinner, as the sun began to set, Jack and Emma walked down to the beach. Just the two of them, the way they used to when Emma was a child. They walked in silence for a while, listening to the waves, feeling the sand beneath their feet. Finally, Emma spoke. Are you okay, Dad? Really okay? Jack was quiet for a long moment. Then, I don't know. Some days are good. Some days I wake up and think I'm still in that cave. Some days I can't believe any of this is real. It's real. You're home. I know. And I'm grateful. More grateful than I can express. He stopped walking, turned to face her. But Emma, I need you to know something. What Khalid told you about me asking for you every day, that was true. But I never wanted this for you. Never wanted you to become a soldier. To see what I've seen. To do what I've done. I know. I wanted you to have a normal life. A happy life. Far away from war and death and all this darkness. Emma took her father's hands. The same hands that had taught her to shoot. To survive. To never give up. I did have a happy life, Dad, because you taught me to be strong, to stand up for what's right, to never quit no matter how hard things get. You gave me that, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. Jack's eyes filled with tears. You're the best thing I ever did, Emma. The only thing I got right. Then let's make the rest count. We have time now. Time to heal. Time to live. Time to make new memories. Jack nodded, pulled her into a hug. They stood there for a long time, father and daughter on the beach in Virginia, watching the sun set over the ocean. Behind them on the porch, Maddox and the others watched in silence. He's going to be okay, Garrett said quietly. Yeah, Maddox agreed. He is. As darkness fell, Emma and Jack walked back to the house. The seals were still there and would be for a few more hours, telling stories, remembering fallen brothers, celebrating the ones who came home. Later that night, after everyone had left, Emma and Jack sat in the backyard. The same yard where Jack had taught her about the stars all those years ago. Emma looked up, found Polaris, the North Star, shining bright against the darkness. You remember what you told me? Emma asked. About the North Star? That it would always guide you home, Jack said, no matter where you were, no matter how lost you felt. You were my North Star, Dad, in that dark cell when I wanted to give up on finding you. I looked up and imagined you looking at the same star, and I held on. Jack took her hand. And you were mine, 6,570 days. Every night I looked at that star and thought of you, and I held on. One more day, then another, then another. They sat in silence, holding hands, watching the stars. Thank you for never giving up on me, Jack said. A haze never quits, Emma replied. Never. Above them, the North Star shone bright and constant, guiding them home. Just as it always had, just as it always would.